to officially call to order this meeting of the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. We'll begin with an invocation from Mary McCoy.
Dear Heavenly Father, with the storms coming through, please watch over our first responders and our city workers as they have to deal with the aftermath of what is going on. Also take care of all the people that are having to travel today, whether to or from work or home. Please watch over our board as we make decisions for our city and that we use good judgment. And just bless the city of Terrell as we move forward throughout this year. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you'll stand with me for the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. And now the Terrell flag.
I was sitting there going,
What a good idea for the centennial.
Work on that.
Dora,
Yes.
we're gonna do it. Yeah, write that down, man. That's a great idea.
Before we review
Pledge.
our adoption and consider adoption of our prior meeting minutes, I would like to pause for a moment of recognition.
Oh, yes. I don't think you can beat, although some of you might want to, the dedication of one Mary McCoy, who on this piece of paper is listed differently. Mary Lindsay is the name on this piece of paper. This is July 1991, and this seems to be a group of all-stars. I can tell it's a group of all-stars because Steve Rogers is in this photo, and I will just dare other people. I'm going to show it to J.C. Jackson first, because I bet you that you can name one or two of those folks. What do you think? There you go. Yeah, Tommy Spencer right there. Yeah, So there you go. So let's see if she can pick out herself.
oh my God.
Can the witness identify herself in this photograph?
Oh, there's Rhonda Sneed, my dad.
Yeah.
Oh my, oh, where am I?
You're at a softball game, I think at Ben Gill, right?
No, oh no.
Here's his chamber.
Okay, you think I'm in this picture. I am not in this picture.
I'm told that you are the third person on the first row.
Is that? That is my mother.
How could Steve Rogers get this wrong?
That is my mother.
I've been set up by a city employee.
The only way I can tell, the only way I know this,
I will remember this when he files his retirement papers. Steve will be filling that out. TMRS is coming down for me.
the reason I know that, she's got the low legs, and I had to look at her legs to make
Oh, how
sure.
cute.
I will have to, she will enjoy that.
That is cute.
Would you like to take this home so you can show this off?
Actually, I'd love to give it to her,
There you go. All right.
because it's got my dad in it too.
Sweet. That is sweet.
I know, I was looking at that going, that doesn't look good.
Just barely got out of that one, didn't I? That way.
All right, at this time, we'll consider adoption of the minutes from our meetings on October 14th and October 24th. And as soon as you're ready, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I scanned them online on the packet, so I will make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms.
minutes from all
Heisel.
three.
Oh, from all three. Thank you for pointing that out.
Do that.
Yes.
I'll second them because I trust Hillary.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kegris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Looks like we have a financial update from Mr. Sims.
Absolutely. So we are going to go to your packet. If you flip a couple of pages into your packet, you will be able to take a look at this. I'm going to tell you up front, this item actually connects to an item later on in the agenda called Discuss Update to Paddock Capital Work Plan. But we'll talk about this here, and then we'll talk about capital work plan later on. So on the first page of this, you can see how did we do in year-to-date, which is now close of year through September 30th, 2022. So that's your FY22 full year. You collected $1.2 million in sales tax revenue. That's meaningfully higher than what we thought we would do over the course of the year, so that's good news. We spent about $500,000 there, so we made $717,000. Frankly, we would have hoped that we would have spent money on the Anderson building, but we really have been waiting and waiting through that process, so that's a big change in your budget. You started the year with 1.7 million, you ended the year with 2.4 million, and so that's your summary about your FY 22 spending. And fairly straightforward to take a look at. That $250,000, that's the transfer to the Public-Private Partnership Fund. That is your murals project. And then the transfer to INS number 1, that's the debt payment that you're doing to support the $3.5 million that the city borrowed on your behalf. And so you transfer money over to pay those off on a regular basis. So the next page is then just what's in the budget for FY23. So over there in the column that says FY23 proposed budget is your summary numbers. The way it's laid out right now, you would collect almost $1.2 million. We'll see how sales taxes go. Then the total expenditures there is listed at $859,000, and you've got the details on the next page, which I think are a little bit more illuminating. So you turn over to the next page, you can see we've set up $130 in facade reimbursement, carried that $400,000 over on the Anderson building. Park capital improvements, $75,000. Downtown capital improvements, almost $75,000. And then you've got your transfer to INS number 1. Again, that's your debt payment. And you already made your transfer to the mural project, so you don't need to do that again. So that's a total of $859,000. So you've clearly got some ability to spend some money. And that's really the lesson here, is that just due to COVID and getting started up and having some expenses that we thought might hit you, not hit you, you're really looking at a fund balance here of about $2.4 million. So you really need to be making a strategic decision over the next couple of months about, well, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to say, hey, it's great, we'll sit on a fund balance for a little while, or do you have some key projects you'd like to implement with your fund balance? And that's going to be a question we ask you when we come back around to this discussion later in the agenda about your capital plan. And if you'd like to address any of those needs. And then I've got an executive session item that has to do with spending down fund balance as well. So definitely give you an opportunity to do that. The last part of your financial update is the one that's the very last page in this little section here. This is agenda item page 13, and this is a little spreadsheet that Glenn and Dawn and Jay Ayers put together for us that shows how you're doing on spending your $3.5 million. So go back to the original resolution that you guys passed. You said $250 for Breezy Hill lighting, $250 for Breezy Hill land, Ben Gill parking lot lighting, $100,000. Ben Gill field lighting, restrooms, and then contingency. So based on what you've decided to date, what we've spent to date, we've got $1.4 million worth of those projects delivered, okay? So that's good news. You can see those in the real world. Then what's been approved by the Paddock Board and the City Council, well, that's that $1.6 million restroom package. So we show that was your expenditure of your contingency funds. So what's pending further review? This is just next step decision-making for you guys. You got $31,000. You could do a little bit more with Breezy Hill lighting, or you could spend that on another project. I'm going to talk in executive session about our Breezy Hill land issue, so we can go through that. And then you've got Ben Gill parking lot lighting. You've got a recommendation from Glenn, but I frankly think it's probably a good idea, and that we've got some parking lots to repair at Ben Gill that we're going to do through city funds over the next year or so. It might be better to hold on that spending and let us take care of that when we redo those parking lots ourselves. So that may be something you want to think about just taking off of your to-do list. And then there's a small amount of money left over for Ben Gill field lighting. That gives you about $382,000 worth of decision-making to do. And again, that's why we felt like, okay, your revenues are a little higher than we thought, your cash in bank is a little better than we thought. We're getting a better and better picture all the time about how much money you need to keep reserved and ready to go for your Complete Streets project. Raylan will hear about that, and that makes it timely to kind of go through and update that capital plan. So I'm kind of giving, the capital plan presentation here, so I'll stop talking about that. But there's your report. That's your update on finances. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of those.
Questions for Mike regarding the financial update? Can I make a comment?
Please, yeah.
I would love to have this at the beginning of every presentation because it really, we talk about the pieces and it's hard to put it all together. So it's very helpful to see
Okay.
the line item breakdown.
Okay, very good. We will always do that.
And while I'm thankful y'all sent this out yesterday afternoon, I see that none of us had time to print it out. So if we're going to be digging into these numbers,
Yeah.
is it possible to have just a copy of this financial update paper version for us to look through?
We normally print, but it was so many pages, we thought we'd just go through it here.
Sure.
And then send it, but I'll be happy to do that.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Do you think it makes sense to have right now? Are we really going to be digging into these numbers? Or I guess we could just pull it up as we look at each line.
I would say that if we could beg for Dora to step out and just make copies of those 4 pages or 5 pages.
And whatever.
Yeah, right, yeah. Do you have them, Dora? Yeah,
Thank you,
okay,
Dora.
very good, thanks. All right.
Any other
Anything
questions?
else on this page?
All right.
Okay, very good.
No need to approve the numbers. They are what they are. Let's now move on to discussing updates from our downtown project manager, Ms. Raylan Smith.
Good morning. So what you have today is just a very brief review of everything that's kind of happening right now. I want to let you know that my goal is I'm working on a budget and timeline of all projects. And so what it will do is it's going to break down the next 5 fiscal years. And I'm working with consultants now to break down the funding and how those projects are going to lay out over the next few years. So that should be ready for the January meeting, and that would begin to be my presentation to you. It's going to be more about funding and project timelines. And so moving into the next item, which is the capital or any of those smaller projects, I would then add those so that you could constantly see where we are in progress. So just in the first month that I was here, we are working on the Quiet Zones Complete Streets meeting with TxDOT and COG. It's a little hard to get everyone together right before the holidays, so we did make some connections with COG and TxDOT, and we're kind of pushing out those dates because we think it's really important to get everyone in the same room. Kimley Horn has worked on the exhibits. We think we know the different options that we want to present in front of TxDOT as well as the county and COG. But we are working to nail down a date for that meeting. So I will continue to update you and then also bring you an update as far as the feedback that we get from TxDOT and those partners. We've had 2 TERS meetings, and so basically those have just been introductions in the standard monthly meetings. Again, they will receive the same report that I'm going to be preparing for y'all as far as construction timelines and financials. Lots of real estate updates, which we will bring those to you here in just a little bit, and working to dive into those staff updates and owner meetings for our development agreements. The city has quite a few of those in trying to pick up some of the pieces of the facade grants and things that y'all have approved so that we can start doing status reports back to you on those. Again, my presentations moving forward will be more about budget preparation as we look to the next 5 and 10 years, because a lot of what I'm doing is going to be across several years of financial impacts to the city. Working very diligently, and we'll talk a little bit about this when I bring you an individual towards the end of the agenda, but working on those downtown development guidelines. What I'm seeing is that we need more of a variety. I think that we have downtown business owners and also downtown property owners who have ideas, and I think right now we're really kind of limiting them as far as what we're willing to assist with the facade program because of how the ordinance is written. So I've been working with Chris Basham and Mark Thacker, who is your architect that goes out and gives you recommendations for those facade programs. So I think that we have some ideas to bring to you. I'm trying to be an advocate, obviously, for the city, but I really want to be an advocate for those business owners downtown. And so I've spent a lot of time going and talking to them and finding out what their ideas are. So I'll be bringing a couple of those to you. And then the next section is just who I've been speaking with. I've got meetings set up, follow-up meetings with Grace and Company, the French Soiree, even Tony Abels with BH Daves is interested in doing some work to the front of his building. And then also, we've been speaking with the owner for the First National Bank. So I think we have a plan to start her exterior and structural renovation. So I'll be bringing that to you once she gets some numbers together. So. Grace and Company is this corner building over here right beside Hippie Express. Yes, I knew you would know where that was. So, I just making sure you knew exactly where I was talking about. So yes, Grace and Company, they house 3 different businesses in there, and she's wanting to do some exterior facades. Yes. So next steps, again, we are nailing down the project review committee meeting. We have the Texas Water Board funding for the Union Pacific Railroad access. We are working on the final consent letters to begin work in South Alley. We have a contract for design of South Alley, which is all of the water sewer franchise utilities. We're taking the electrical down. We had a meeting with Atmos yesterday, so it's a coordination of franchise utilities, city utilities, Atmos, and Encore. So all of those design and consultant meetings are going on right now. We will be following up with Atmos with their plan at the beginning of 2023. So what we're hoping to do is bring everyone in at the same time and only disrupt our downtown businesses once. So we will coordinate those. Your procurement schedule, we are going to look at bringing in a construction manager agent and award a contract once we know exactly what projects are going to go forward after the first of the year. And then I am proposing a downtown meeting with JBJ Management, which is our community engagement consultant through the Quiet Zones and Complete Streets project, to do a downtown merchants meeting, kind of an update, a welcome from the downtown manager, but also an update on South Alley. I've been meeting with people individually, but I would really like to start a core group of those business and property owners as we go through the development guidelines and just be able to bring something to them on a quarterly basis. So that's kind of my plan moving forward. A lot of things after the first of the year. It's kind of an odd time for everyone right now. But do you have any questions? Is there any other focus or anything that you would like to hear from me either now or in the future?
How firm are you that the utilities will be brought down the South Alley? Is that like that?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
It is happening.
I appreciate, I know that Mr. Jackson's going to represent the Paddock Board when this project review committee gets put together and meets. But I heard you say that y'all have decided what you're going to present to TxDOT. We don't know what you're going to present.
Yes. So right now we are working on 5 different options, and I would have brought those to you today, but we are still going back and forth with Kimley Horn to make sure that those maps are correct. The big fear is once you bring it towards in the meeting, it then gets out to everyone, and so we just want to make sure what's presented is something that the public.
And I'll also say there's an element of what those maps show that are speaking to TxDOT in TxDOT's language, right? And so that's an important part of this. So when you first flip through them, you think, why are they concentrated on bike lanes? And that's because they want to see what your bicycle lane options are on those maps, right? So there might be more of that on there than you guys are really, sweating every day of how are we doing bike lanes downtown, right? That may not be your top priority, but that's a thing they want to see. So just to go through the options real quick, so you said Steve will, I can count on Steve to tell me if I'm wrong. Let's see if I do this correctly. You've got sort of this baseline idea of what if we designed the roadway to maximize the roadway? And that would mean whittling down the side of the sidewalks, right? So they're gonna wanna see that in TxDOT. What if we do the roadway bed by itself, by the book, right? So that's speaking to TxDOT in their language. What if we remove on-street parking? What are the implications for that? What if we remove left turn lanes? What are the implications of that? What if we get rid of on-street parking and left turn lanes? What does that look like? And then what happens if you do a one-way couplet? What are the implications of one-way couplet? So there's drawings associated with each of those options right now, and certainly opportunity there for anybody to have input on those options. And then, of course, if we have another option that comes up during this design process, we can still slot that in there. It's not as if this one meeting with TxDOT is determinative, or, suddenly it's too late in the process. If we have other ideas downtown, we can continue to take that input. Did I leave anything out?
Well, I'm gonna say it a different way, because I like to speak plainly. We've got 5 options now, and we don't need everybody in downtown to think there are gonna be 5 options going forward. The people who are gonna fund this thing is the project review committee. So we need the folks from the COG and TxDOT to give us some feedback and buy-in. We're gonna narrow that list down, then we're gonna share it with everybody. And so that's a typical way you do a project like this. You have to have alternatives and present alternatives. We're starting with 5, that's gonna get narrowed down to 2 or 3, and then that's what we'll march forward with, and that's when we'll start sharing everything. We're not trying to keep anything from anybody. We just don't want people to start walking around downtown sticking these maps up on the storefronts down there thinking that's what we're actually gonna do, because we really don't know yet. And so we're not trying to keep you out of the loop. We just don't think it's the right time to bring you in. Right now, if you wanna come in my office, I'll close the door, turn the lights off, we'll look at it. Sign a little piece of paper.
If you walked by my desk,
Yeah.
you might get a glimpse. I think it's very important about the communication, especially with the downtown merchants. They're a little antsy right now because everyone knows that there's a South Alley project, but no one knows what's happening. And so we're very popular on things like Facebook. And so it's just, I'm trying to be very intentional when I meet with the downtown merchants to make sure that whatever I'm telling you, it wouldn't matter if you told Facebook. So, anyway, that's where we're at in the process. And I really think once we get some feedback from COG and TxDOT, because obviously they're gonna go through and X and be like, well, that's definitely not gonna happen, but we are having to bring them several options to start with. So that's where we're at.
I know this board is very focused on the complete streets plan, and that it promotes small business in our downtown, it promotes pedestrian traffic, bicycle, sure, and we're excited to see how this goes.
I will also give you the reminder that the Complete Streets project includes Spur 226, and so there's some options associated with Spur 226, and we're doing from, what's our limits? Are we doing from 80 down to, it's not really airport, right? About airport? About airport, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Raylan or Mr. Sin? Ms. Smith or Mr. Sin? Thank you.
All right.
Up next, we'll discuss updates to our capital work plan. Time to update.
Mary McCoy is,
Let you know I am in that.
you were in the-
That is
Mary
not my
McCoy's
mother.
mother is in the blue in the back. That's definitely a COVID-era photo.
Yes, very COVID. Yes.
I'm gonna request that the board president help me select a time and a place to do a fun photo of the group where you guys could be friends with each other. I think you're all angry at each other in this photograph, right? All right, so I'm gonna go through a few of the pages of the existing one. Remember, your bylaws tell you that you really need to be spending in line with the capital plan. And the idea of that was, when we went to the voters, we said, hey, we're not just going to go chase the hot thing of the moment. We're not gonna just go get excited about one little thing. We're gonna plan, we're gonna think, we're gonna make sure that we have an effort here to make our spending as targeted and as effective as possible. So I'm just gonna give you highlights of the existing plan, and it will, I think, speak for itself about why we ought to do an update. So agenda item page 26 is page 10 of the plan. So right there, here's your multi-year financial projection. Goodness gracious, aren't we making more money than that, right? So that's a great thing. And if we were to be doing our planning based on these revenue numbers, we'd be way off. We're getting more than we were projecting for FY30. So that'll tell you about the change in sales tax receipts since then. And some of that is inflation, obviously. On the other hand, quite a bit of that is just that we have seen a lot more booming of Crossroads than we ever really thought might happen. So it is good news, and we're happy to get that. But obviously, we need to be doing an update on that. The next page in there is a thing that we talk about internally, and it's kind of buried in the text there. The park plan has $100 million in total improvements, and the downtown plan has a total of $98 million in total improvements. So we really need to keep an eye on, okay, which of those are we really focused on, and which of those do we really want to do, and how do we prioritize them? I think we are working a little bit inefficiently with the park board because they're having some quorum issues. I'd like to get you guys talking more with the park board so that you can have a clear-cut vision of, okay, here's what we are concerned with prioritizing at Arley White, at Kings Creek, at Stallings. Here's what the work is going to be that's paid for by the city. Here's work that the Paddock Board wants to do. Here's Breezy Hill. Here's other parks. We've got the Crossroads Park that's fully funded by private and grants, so that's great. What is the status of that? Same thing with downtown. We're actually making a lot of progress on whittling down that $98 million because we're identifying what parts of the downtown square we're building, and we've funded different parts of that. If I go over a couple more pages, it talks about partnerships. Steve mentioned partnerships. The page 30 of the agenda gives a list of existing funding opportunities. We're certainly working through this list. We could easily update this for you guys. I would say TERS number 1 is spending a lot more money than this page shows, so that's a good thing. The next page shows you what Steve alluded to. Those first two TBDs related to quiet zones and US 80 Spur 226 complete streets. Well, frankly, over the next couple of months, I think that's going to get more and more clear about what that might be. There's dramatic cost differences in some of those complete streets projects, and so if we think we can get 80% of a $25 million project from the Regional Transportation Council, we'll get that slotted here and get a little bit more vision here. I'm not going to go through every page of this. There was agenda item page 33 is your long-term debt scenarios. Obviously, if our borrowing and interest rate calculations are different, then we would need to update all of this. I would say that the interest rate we assumed was high for the borrowing we really did, and if we were to borrow today, Tori Lucas can tell me that this would not be necessarily the number we would get in the market today, right? So the 3.5% there, we'll see how it goes if we borrow money. Let's say we do a borrowing for complete streets 12 months from now. Well, I'm not sure I want to be the guy predicting interest rates 12 months from now, but I bet they're lower than they are today. So we'll see how that goes. So that is going to mean that we're going to update our debt analysis. These were all based on the idea that we would borrow at one time for both parks and complete streets. We've really separated that borrowing, so now we need to give you more fine-grained analysis of where that stands. And frankly, I think you're going to have to think about, well, what are your priorities? Do you want to solely focus on downtown for a couple of years? Do you want all your borrowing over the next couple of years to be only downtown related? Or do you want to say to yourself, we would like to do another small borrowing for park projects? Well, again, that's decision-making that you guys need to make, that you would make under the form of a debt analysis and a capital plan. I'm going to get over to the famous lasagna graph, my favorite graph in here. There it is, page 44. So at the time that we did this, we said, okay, let's just simplify how we're dividing things up. And so we created this. And we said, well, if we've got $800,000 a year roughly, well, now we have 1.2 million, right? What if we held 300,000 for debt service on large projects, partnerships and engineering, 200,000, facade program partnerships, 150, short-term high-impact projects? My comment when I look at this is you need to rethink this and make adjustments for what you'd like to do differently. You mentioned the South Alley project with bringing the Encore Electric down. Well, you know, we've had lots of discussions about how would this board like to support the South Alley project. Are you guys going to come back around after the wires go down and put some amenities down there? Do you want to focus on exciting things like, hey, we could build some screened dumpsters? Sounds boring, but that's going to make a difference downtown about whether or not we have screened dumpsters in the South Alley. So you got to think about how you want to do that, and coordinating the South Alley project with the Quiet Zone project, because really South Alley becomes a series of one-way streets, right? Whenever you have the Quiet Zone project in place. So again, I think this is a major element for you to rework, and I won't go through the rest of it other than to say staff recommendation for you is going to be take this nice human being over here by the name of Raylan and say, hey, Raylan, let's get working on updating this. And then I think what she would do is bring you a couple of different, I'll call it workshop discussion elements in your next couple of meetings, take you through this, take you through some updated financial projections, and get some feedback with you on different strategies so that you could adopt, I would hope to adopt in January or February an update to this. I don't think that needs to take a long time. And we can certainly have some joint meetings between now and then, and that would give you a chance to have seen a town hall meeting. That'd be the nice way to coordinate this. It'd be nice to have that town hall meeting and get some thinking under your belt related to that, and then adopt an update to your capital plan. So that's the general idea. I think in that time frame as well, you could do another park board meeting, and we'll think about whether or not we want to put you together with the TERS board as well, because the TERS board's going to be doing a lot of thinking about how to spend money on and how to prioritize money on downtown projects. So, any discussion from the group?
Looks like it was 2 years ago, November, that we signed off on the original, so I'm glad we're not waiting any longer.
Right, yeah.
We're ready to update it, and glad the news is positive, that sales tax is up, and for the foreseeable future will be, so the timing feels right.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
And if I would love to have some non-official meeting, quorum may be present, but no meeting and business will be taking place. Kind of downtown, just mingle with not just us, but parks and anybody, merchants, and with our new downtown project manager to really put some eyes and brainstorm on some ideas before we, lock in the budget. We always have great ideas, and then you get in here and there's so much going on. It's like, oh, I forgot. A way for her to be able to start itemizing just, is it possible? Who's going to fund it? Dumpsters, like he says, it's not exciting, but what a difference to not have 5 dumpsters and 15 trash cans. Most of these businesses use, honestly, it's 50% or more of probably people driving back there dumping their trash. So, little things like that are pretty impactful, but I wouldn't do it before the South Alley finish either. So, one of the great things happening.
I love your very big book with your bylaws and things, but what I'm doing is kind of pulling out those initial short and long-term goals that you did set, give you some updates of anything that might have happened through city funds or other funding, just kind of give you an update on all of your thoughts from 2 years ago. And then some things that have been mentioned just since I've been here, like, the downtown lighting, just their standard daily lighting, obviously the dumpster projects. And if y'all have ideas, if you just want to shoot me an email, what I would like to do is put together just a workbook for y'all. And if you want to go meet and you want to go do walking, or just give you some note pages, and then when we come together on our first workshop, I think it would be great to narrow that scope down maybe to the next 2 to 3 years. And then that be what we go to the park board or the TERS board with. Just kind of focusing in on a few projects And I think that you might be surprised as far as just the updates with the long list of things that you wanted. So I think you'll have an opportunity to really get some notes, some good notes, especially when you meet with the downtown merchants, so.
And Raylan, I think having you present to us is so helpful because when I'm looking at the budget and I look at what we've done and just when you look out at the town, I think we have done really good at our major borrowing, our big capital projects. We've made some very big accomplishment point there, look, and I know downtown especially, a lot of that is gonna have to wait for other things to come first. But what I hear from people is, cool, you put lights in the park. When is downtown gonna look better? When is downtown gonna look better? And I look at the budget and I see that we have money left unspent already in the budget. And so, I think us knowing who wants to participate, especially with the facade grant program, like maybe we need to restructure and put more money into that up front, and then we can tailor it off later. Because, I mean, if we could have everybody do to their building what Houston Smith did, like, we would be just beating on our chest, and so would the town of Terrell. So I think that those things are things that don't have to take 5 years, and those are things that don't have to wait on complete streets. So those, I see, we always do this, Mike. We always jump to the next bullet on the agenda, but.
Let me fill in the blank there. So think about correctly delivering the South Valley project. We talked about this a lot of. It's not going to be 100% done in the same way that the North Valley was 100% done, right? I get rid of, I update Atmos, I update water, I update sewer, I redo paving, boom, I'm done with North Valley. South Valley is a little bit different of an animal because I've got to also drop the electric lines. I've got a lot of vault and underground issues with a lot of those buildings that I have to take care of. And then I've got to make sure that I correctly tie in. So I'll be a little vague because there's land issues involved. But on each end of South Valley, in order to avoid conflicts with Union Pacific and in order to do the right thing for quiet zones in the future, you're essentially going to have to build little South Valley connection points up to a couple of the cross streets, right? So I might need to get up to Rockwall, or I might need to get up to Virginia, or I might need to get up to some of those other streets. When I do that, there are parking lots to be built, right? So to use the Cowboys example that we like to flog, right? So we're working through an acquisition process there. We know that that's a key thing. We've got a preliminary layout that Chris and Steve have worked through with Kimley Horn about how should that look and what are the schematics of that parking lot. So where's that budgeted for, right? I don't have that budgeted right now. I need to find a funding source for building that parking lot. Well, the parking lot might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but delivering something where I've got trees, I've got parking, I've got grass, I've got mural, where right now there's a dilapidated elderly building. That may be something that you say, you know what, great, let's do that because that helps a restaurant, site downtown to have that little bit of extra parking there. And then it becomes something that allows us to get to a little bit more final on the South Valley project as well. So there's a lot of those things that Raylan's going to bring you over the next couple of months and say, okay, here's an idea, here's an idea. I'm going to show you an executive session idea. So there'll be plenty to spend money on. Right?
We're not lacking, but it will be fun to bring you those things that we can do now.
And under the heading of not surprising anybody, so we did approve our 3 new tax increment refinance zones. So this is the purple one is TERS number 1. The red one down here is TERS number 2. That's the one nicknamed Arboretum Estates. The yellow one here is Eastland Business Park, and the blue one up here is kind of long, runs along US 80, and that over there is the North Spur project. Well, all 3 of these are attached to some sort of new greenway or park type element. Arboretum Estates kicks off a 100-acre arboretum, okay? That's got its own planning process. It's got funding source associated with the development and the annexation.
We won't be here. We won't be on this one. All right, thank you. Anything else in regard to the capital work plan? All right, if not, we'll move forward to business items. Discuss and consider facade improvement agreement regarding 211 East Moore.
So with this, I do have a preliminary plan from Grayson Company and also her proposed budget of $7,000. And so what she's proposing to do is the new sign. She would like to paint her building. She wants to remove the flower box, which essentially ends up with a lot of items left from people walking up and down the sidewalk. So she is looking to remove that planter box. We did have Mark Thacker go and look. One thing that I wanted to bring your attention to, what I keep running into and something that I think needs to be considered moving forward, is we are so excited that Grayson Company wants to paint and they want to update the front of their building. Obviously, this is a stucco building, so, you know, the painting or going with a different color is an easy option for her. One item that Mark Thacker and I continue to go back to is making sure that when we send Thacker out, that he is also giving structural recommendations on these buildings. Because what we're running into is I've got some business owners who have put in a lot of money into their business and a lot of money into their ideas. And it looks good, it looks like it's been updated, but now that we're really diving in, the money should have been spent on the structure itself. And I just think that as a service from the city, if your dedication is to have this on-staff architect who also has access to his engineering firm, that when we go out and we look at, yes, it would be very nice and make this building pretty. However, if there are things that need to be addressed in that building, I would like to be able to bring that to y'all as a portion of this grant, if that's something that you're interested in. I just worry about the grant matching funds and us saying, yes, please make it look pretty, but we're not worried that your building has structural damage to it. And so that is something that I wanted to bring to your attention, because I do have a couple of business owners. So the request today is 211 East Moore. Her total budget is $7,000. I am proposing, and this is kind of an out-of-the-box thinking, but her awning, the way our ordinance reads right now, the awning really doesn't match her vision for her building. And Thacker has been putting together some ideas of how we might be able to do some of the fabrics awning and what do those specifications look like, kind of like trailer furniture. So he's putting together some different awning options, and what I would like to propose to y'all is I have two business owners, Grayson Company and also BH Daves, who is looking at adding an awning and also replacing an awning. And I would like for Mark Thacker to come up with a couple of really good ideas and samples, and possibly that be a portion of the facade grant is just the awnings or the community cover for people on sidewalks. I think that we have potential, if it's something that is led by the city and we're able to approach some business owners, that we could make a huge difference in just how it looks as you drive through Terrell, and then as those business owners want to come to us about facades or building renovations, that we can really make sure that they're able to focus in on the structure itself. That's just my thought process and what I'm learning in talking to the business owners. So I kind of wanted to get some direction from the board. Obviously, you do have money set aside for facade. I don't think that you had very many projects last year, and I am actively kind of recruiting, because I think the drive just down 80 could definitely be impacted. So that's what I have before you today.
Do we have an estimated life cycle for a fabric awning?
That is what he's looking at on the specifications, because we want to make sure that we have a 15 to 20-year lifespan. And so he's looking at different manufacturers and what is that going to look like and what exactly is that material. And it may be something that looks like a fabric awning, whether it be rounded or just some different options. So he's going to kind of do like just kind of a portrait of what we could do to some of the buildings, and so I would like to bring that to y'all. But however, I don't want to stop Grace and Company from doing their painting and, you know, what they would like to do to the outside, but I would love to propose to her an awning once we have some options.
Does the $7,000 not include this new awning?
No, it does not include the awning.
Sign and paint?
Yeah, it was just paint. She'll have to do some wall repairs once she removes the flower box. And, so she's wanting to move forward on this and have this done before the first of the year. So I didn't want to prevent bringing that to you, that portion of her project.
Do I hear you suggesting, though, that maybe as a board, we would fund her awning and potentially BH Dave's awning at a percent? We don't know what that costs.
No, not yet. And it may not be at that, but I would like the opportunity to put together some options. Also, what Thacker is working on is to make sure when these business owners come to us and they say that we want to paint or whatever it is that they're wanting to do to the exterior, making sure that he has the specifications for the ceiling and what needs to happen to that building before you put paint on and what type of paint needs to be used. So I think that's important if we're helping fund what people are doing, that it's within the specifications so that we know we're not damaging, or they're not damaging their building. So he's working on that to make sure that with these funds, if you were to help with this portion of it at all, but with these funds, you're guaranteeing that you're using this process. So,
This building doesn't have an awning currently, correct?
no, it does not.
I think covered sidewalks is a great addition for a downtown. I think different awnings can add character, personality to the building, you know, when it makes sense. This building, it appears it makes sense. Matt's building probably doesn't make sense.
And I love the look of the awning design that is on there, regardless of the material that's used. I think the flat awnings suspended by poles that we have on many of our buildings right now just look so dated. And so, yeah, we need to figure out what's the best longevity for our money, but I love the idea of the visual design of that versus what we have.
Mark is very excited to put together some options if that's something that y'all would like to see. Because I think that would be a big impact, short term.
Yeah, I think awnings are always kind of funny because they, just like everything else, they go through seasons, functionality, and then fashion, and then does it look good? I mean, you've seen, there's awnings that are 2 foot out because they look cool, but they don't really serve a purpose. And I think the new fad in downtowns is definitely going towards functionality, but with the same. And I love that we're not worried about everyone having the same awning. I think every building being a little different is okay. I think it looks great. $7,000, I know that some of the owners, and that means that they're using the same people they use. I mean, that's a great budget. They're not asking for a ton. I wish that Hippie Express was asking for $7,000, but
Can we just go offer them $7,000 if we get to have Mark Thacker decide what it looks like?
Ideas.
yeah,
We're gonna have lots of ideas.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, the structural, what you were saying about structure is absolutely key, because if you spend all that money just to find out that the wall is suspended wrong and it's pushing out, you have to tear it all down, and we just threw good money at bad, so. You're not saying there's a structural problem here, you're
No,
speaking more
there's
of
not
some
one
others.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to use this one as kind of a flagship project because it was smaller. But to go ahead and make sure that he was checking all of those items and putting together some guidelines for the paint.
You wouldn't want to take the stucco down and go back to the original brick, I'm guessing.
No.
Probably wouldn't fit the $7,000, so.
Yeah. So I'm excited that, you know, she is wanting to do some work on her building, and so I think it's important, and this would be a good first step.
As I recall, we don't have any, you know, firm guidelines in place for, we'll fund up to X for this, that, or the other. So before us today is a request for $7,000 to update the lettering, paint, and planter removal, for max reimbursement of $7,000. Any further discussion? I'll consider a motion to approve the request. I'll make that motion. Thank you, Ms. Heisel. Do I have a second? favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.087 regarding deliberations for economic development negotiations.